A few years ago, I was the very first person to ever film inside the Boggs house from Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands, my favorite movie of all time. And today, I'm in Burbank, California, where I'm going to visit the house Tim Burton grew up in. I'll be visiting his childhood home and taking you guys along with me. Supposedly, this is the neighborhood that inspired Edward Scissorhands. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the World of Micah. As most of you know, my all-time favorite movie is Edward Scissorhands, written and directed by Tim Burton. And right behind me is the childhood home of Tim Burton in the neighborhood that definitely inspired that film. We're going to take a closer look at Tim Burton's childhood home. We're also going to take a look at the neighborhood where he grew up and where, in the backyard, he did some of his early films. Now, let's take a closer look. There would be a Maple Street, I think, in the neighborhood of Tim Burton's childhood home. This definitely has some vibes like Tin Smith Circle in Florida, in Lutz, Florida, where they filmed Edward Scissorhands. Couldn't you see a castle in the distance here? Pretty crazy to think this is where Tim Burton grew up and where he got his humble beginnings. And as a teenager, experimented with filmmaking, just like his heroes, Ed Wood being one of them. And he went on to make one of my favorite films of all time, Edward Scissorhands. And this is the childhood home of Tim Burton right here. Obviously, the family embraces it. I believe the grandson who his grandparents live here, and they bought this house from the Burton family, totally embrace it. I see some Nightmare Before Christmas items over here. Tombstones. This definitely has the Burton vibe. It kind of reminds me of Bela Lugosi's house, which Bela Lugosi in Plan 9, it was filmed at Tor Johnson's house. But there are quotes of Burton in interviews saying that all the houses are cookie cutter. He's not wrong. I've seen like the same design on a ton of these houses. And in the backyard is where he made one of his first films, The Island of Dr. Agor, which was a play based on the Isle of Dr. Monroe. Right back there in that backyard. Just like Victor and Frankenweenie. I totally get some Frankenweenie like vibes here. He kind of did that like in the way Edward Scissorhands is loosely based off Frankenstein, but he also did some of his first stop motion animation inside this house. See in the backyard there. That hoop looks new. I don't think Tim would have played basketball, but maybe he made some of his creatures in that garage back there. I wonder what room was his. There's also some talk that in an interview, Tim says that there was a neighbor around who was cutting his bushes all the time, and he would use scissors to trim his hedges and bushes and things like that. And that's where he got the idea for the scissors and everything. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I can totally see how this place would inspire it, because walking around here, I'm like, this totally feels like Edward Scissorhands' neighborhood. And I would know, because I did that filming location inside the house, and I know that neighborhood like the back of my hand. Just standing here alone, these two houses are the same. They're just flipped. That house is the same as that one. It's crazy. And they do embrace Halloween down here, I will say. Yeah, I can totally see a big castle at the end, Peg Boggs walking down the street, going back to her house, the Boggs house, right here. I gotta just look at the house for a second. I can think of Tim walking out here, you know, it's just like Frankenweenie right here. But what a wild thing to think. A young Tim Burton roamed these streets, getting inspiration for things that would come later on in life. Thankful for that house and all the imagination it brought Tim when he was a kid. Definitely inspired me in my life. The weird thing is, if you sit here long enough, a plane will fly by from the Burbank airport. It's not far from here. There they go, see? Flies over all the time. He really lived in suburbia. A boring little street. It's not boring anymore, but I could see back in the day, every house having same color, same shape. Maybe even forget which house is yours. But one thing's for sure, this was inspiring. Yeah, as you can see, a lot of these houses now embrace Halloween and the weird side. I wonder if these folks know, or if they did know the Burtons when they lived down here. There's a big 0 on that porch. That could have been like the forbidden house of the street, but look right here. Hometown heroes. Right out front, Jack, 0, and Oogie Boogie. And at the end of his street, right over there, is the airport, straight ahead. Well, this was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed this episode and a little tribute to Tim Burton, his childhood. I will see you on the next episode. Until then, stay weird. Goodbye.